Okay, this was one of the most exciting weeks of the year. I mean, we actually had some real fantasy points scored. I swear to God, if we go back and look at last week, we had like 2 running backs actually putting points on the board. But regardless, we are going to have a lot to talk about. We are going to have some buy lows. We are going to potentially have some sell highs. But before we get to it, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you want to join the flock, and make sure if you have any takeaways of your own, if you have any questions, go down to the comment section. I'm going to be trying to respond to at least 200 comments on this video. Last but not least, you know this video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. On Underdog Fantasy, you can check out a ton of cool player props, but only with promo code FLOCK are you going to get access to this special Cooper Kupp over under half a receiving yard player prop. Now, there was some confusion with this. I thought that this was going to be live for everybody who used promo code FLOCK. However, I was wrong because they have to do some special stuff on the back end. If you've signed up with promo code FLOCK in the past, a year ago, 6 months ago, weeks ago, they ran it the first time 3 p.m. Eastern on Friday. So you should already see it live for you. However, if you sign up now or if you signed up after 3 p.m. Eastern on Friday, they're going to run it again on Monday for everybody to have access to it only if you use promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy. Sorry for the confusion. If you use promo code FLOCK, you're still going to be getting it on Monday. Obviously, the game is Monday night. They're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100 as well. So you're going to deposit $10 with the link in the live chat, the link in the comment section, the link in the description. Use promo code FLOCK. You'll immediately have $20 in your account. Go bet the $20 on the Cooper Kupp over. But that should be it. Let's go over to our first lesson learned. This is going to be Austin Eckler is alive. Austin Eckler may have not been the worst first-round pick in fantasy football drafts this year. I mean, with Eckler going through 13 carries, at the same time, 7 targets. So a very typical workload of what you've come to expect from Austin Eckler over the years. You're not looking at him to ever be a prime Ezekiel Elliott level player where Austin Eckler is getting 25 carries out of the backfield. No, we don't need that. What we've always needed with Austin Eckler is him to have the role as a pass catcher. And we need the Los Angeles Chargers offense to be very good. That's exactly what we had this week against the Houston Texans. So while, yeah, I mean, he only had 60 rushing yards, it doesn't matter. Because if you were that passing down running back that is getting usage in the red zone as well in an elite level offense, you still have a ridiculously high ceiling. Despite only having 60 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, he has at the same time 6 receptions, 50 receiving yards, the receiving touchdown to go along with it. Monstrous performance from Eckler. To go over and look at this at the same time, hell, you had 41 snaps played out of 70 snaps for Austin Eckler. They scaled back Sony Michel. I think they probably saw, oh, okay, well, if we play Sony Michel a lot, we lose 38-10 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. How about we get this guy Austin Eckler more involved? Okay, now going over to our next lesson learned. Looks like it is the Kenny Pickett show in Pittsburgh. Now, I know that not many people watch this game. Trust me, I didn't want to watch this game. I had to go through, I had to catch up to make sure that everything we saw was as advertised here with Kenny Pickett. And honestly, I've seen a lot of hate for Kenny Pickett. I mean, you pull up the box score. The man had 10 completions, 3 interceptions, 120 passing yards. He had a QBR of 28.3. Looks disgusting for Kenny Pickett. However, if we are looking at every one of these 3 interceptions, 2 of the interceptions were jump balls, threw it to a wide receiver, 50-50 ball. Wide receiver got his hands on it, pretty much popped it up. Defensive back came away with it. The 3rd interception was a pure Hail Mary at the very end of the game. I mean, time expired. They just had to chunk it from the 50-yard line to the end zone. If their guy came down with it, great. If not, who the hell cares? You're losing the game anyway. So maybe you want to hold the interceptions, at least the first 2 that were kind of jump balls from Kenny Pickett against them. That 3rd one, definitely you can't. It was just that random Hail Mary play. So yes, Kenny Pickett struggled week 1. It's not as bad as it looked. However, I mean, Trubisky was just absolutely horrendous in the first half. And if we're looking at the overall target volume, you had Pat Freiermuth get peppered in this game. I mean, y'all know I was all in on Deontay Johnson. I've ranked Deontay Johnson as a must-start guy every single week. I've said to go get Deontay. Looks like I may be wrong. We're going to talk about Kyle Pitts a little bit later on about something else I may be wrong on. Because if Kenny Pickett's coming in. If he's like, you know what, I'm a rookie quarterback, let's just get the tight end over the middle of the field, I think that would make sense. Maybe you give a bump up for Pat Freiermuth, because in a game where you only had 204 passing yards, you had 85 receiving yards for Freiermuth, and Kenny Pickett looks like he may be taking over here. At least Kenny Pickett this week was the wide receiver one. But let's go through, let's dive into our next lesson learned. And we have two things we need to talk about. First thing is the Detroit Lions may have the worst defense in the NFL. Week 1, they give up 38 points to the Philadelphia Eagles. Philly, great team, can't fault them for that. Week 2, they give up 27 against Carson Wentz and the Commanders. Carson Wentz has a great second half. Their week 3, they give up 28 points against the Minnesota Vikings. This past week, when I tell people, oh no, I mean, maybe you can start DK Metcalf knowing the Detroit Lions defense is bad, but Geno Smith is a train wreck. Don't start Geno Smith. The Seattle Seahawks put up 48 points. We thought that the Buffalo-Baltimore game was going to be exciting. We thought that that was going to be the must-watch game. Turned out it was the Seattle-Detroit game where we had DK Metcalf with a fine day. He had 149 receiving yards. He had 7 receptions. Tyler Lockett was all right, but the story of the day, Rashad Penny, 151 carries, multiple rushing touchdowns as well. And with Rashad Penny, I mean, I've been all aboard saying sell high on Rashad Penny all season. I mean, we didn't really say it over the past 2 weeks because his value is in the gutter. But at the beginning part of the season, I was like, you know what? I don't want anything to do with Penny, knowing that he's a committee running back in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Honestly, I don't think we changed the stance. I know that Seattle looked great, but I think this has more to do with how bad this Detroit Lions defense is. And if we look at Kenneth Walker did expand his role. This was the biggest role we've had with Kenneth Walker so far this year. Rashad Penny had 1 target out of the backfield. He had 17 carries. So if going forward, we're getting 17 carries and 1 target out of the backfield with Rashad Penny, and what I still believe, and I know they just come off a game where they drop 48 points, so everybody's going to laugh at me, but I still believe Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks are going to be a very bad offense here. I think this is a clear sell high moment. Clear sell high moment for Rashad Penny, even though at least now we know if you have anybody going against the Detroit Lions, that's someone we need in our starting lineup. We'll talk about Lions, TJ Hockenson, and Jared Goff at the very end. But going over to our next lesson, we have the J.K. Dobbins breakout. Hell yes. Someone that, we drafted in so many leagues in the 5th and 6th round. And here with J.K. Dobbins goes through, if we look at the snaps, honestly, I mean, this is exactly what we needed to see. You had Justice Hill playing more snaps than J.K. Dobbins a week ago. We said, you know what? We can't play J.K. Dobbins until we actually see him as a productive asset on the field, because we didn't know exactly what we were going to have with the knee injury. So I'm happy with that we benched J.K. Dobbins last week, but now we know to start him going forward. Wish you would have started him today. Running back with 35 snaps out of 70 total for the offense. He also was involved as a pass catcher. If we're pulling this up, J.K. Dobbins was tied for the team lead in receptions at 4. He had the receiving touchdown. He had the rushing touchdown. At the same time, he had 17 opportunities and what should be a great offense going forward. Super excited for J.K. Dobbins. I think he is a must-start guy every week. Now, one thing that we may have gotten right, obviously it looks like, dear God, I may have gotten Deontay Johnson completely wrong here, but at least we knew that Matt Ryan was not as good as he was hyped up to be. Here with Matt Ryan, you have the dog meme going on in Indianapolis right now. Like, you literally have the dog at the table in the fire. That dog is Matt Ryan saying, this is fine. Shutout 2 weeks ago. We were like, okay, yeah, I'm not a big Matt Ryan guy, but keep in mind, they had no Pittman. They had no Alec Pierce. Past week, yeah, it's kind of whatever. This week against the Tennessee Titans, which should be an okay matchup, Matt Ryan doesn't really do anything here. Jonathan Taylor doesn't do anything. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor gets injured. We're going to have to monitor this. Hopefully, we get news on Monday. But Pittman's limited to 3 receptions, 31 receiving yards. There's nothing here. You have 37 passing attempts for Matt Ryan. The fantasy football community thought Matt Ryan was going to be a hyper-efficient quarterback coming and playing in a much better situation than the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta's disgusting. We'll get to that later on. But still, this is not This is not what you want to see from the Indianapolis Colts. I think we have to bump down our expectations with everybody across the board. Hopefully we get a Jonathan Taylor update in tomorrow's videos. But going over to Damien Pierce here, I thought that this was a running back you couldn't start this week. I was looking at the usage of Damien Pierce versus Rex Burkhead on third down, Damien Pierce versus Rex Burkhead in the 2-minute drill. I said, okay, well, if the Los Angeles Chargers boat race the Houston Texans, Damien Pierce not really being involved as a pass catcher, you can count me out. Well, we were right about the usage on third down. If we were actually looking at this, you had 11 third down snaps for Rex Burkhead. Only 1 third down snap for Damien Pierce. You had Rex Burkhead as the only running back in the 2-minute drill as well. So yeah, I mean, you're only getting Damien Pierce as a first and second down player, but when the man goes through and he has a 75-yard rushing touchdown, doesn't matter the game environment, he is going to be an exciting option. And he's getting involved as well as a pass catcher on first and second down. I mean, he went through and he had 6 targets, 6 receptions, only 8 receiving yards, which obviously is not that exciting, but at least he's getting targeted on first and second down. So I apologize if I told you not to start Damien Pierce this past week. It looks like Damien Pierce may be startable, even if he's not the third down running back, even if the Houston Texans are trailing by a large portion of these games. Now, our next lesson learned is the exact opposite of the Detroit Lions. We're against the Detroit Lions. You want to be playing every single option you have. Here against the Dallas Cowboys, nope. Dallas, we are going to be wanting to avoid these guys. I mean, they shut down the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to 19 points week 1. Now, keep in mind, this game wasn't really a football game, so maybe that's a little bit skewed. Week 2, I mean, hell, this is valuable data. Joe Burrow in the Cincinnati Bengals were shut down to 17 points. I mean, week 3, they shut down the Giants to 16. They shut down the Commanders to 10. There has not been a team so far this season to score 20 points against the Dallas Cowboys defense. I think they're a great unit. This next week going up against the Rams, obviously we're starting Cup, but I don't know. I just think that we are now beginning to see these trends. We're a month into the season of what defensive units we need to be avoiding, which ones we need to be attacking. And I think it's safe to throw up on the columns here. Okay, well, we want to be going through and attacking the Detroit Lions, and we want to be going through and avoiding the Dallas Cowboys. But now our next thing I want to be looking at will be Miles Sanders dominating in Philadelphia. Miles Sanders, 27 carries, 134 rushing yards, multiple rushing touchdowns. Doesn't really get involved too much as a pass catcher here, which I don't like to see, but still, I mean, he had 3 targets. Now, what I want to point out is you had no Boston Scott in this game. And with no Boston Scott, I mean, I was a little bit pessimistic because they said, oh, Trey Sermon's going to be brought up. Trey Sermon's going to step into that Boston Scott role. So I was like, okay, freaking get me. We got Miles Sanders and we're playing Trey freaking Sermon. Well, that was just coach speak. I mean, you had Trey Sermon with only 5 snaps. Only 5 snaps in this offense. You had Miles Sanders with 55. Miles Sanders, the 3-down back here. What's very impressive as well is you had 4 rushing touchdowns for the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders had 2 of them. Jalen Hurts had 1 of them. Kenneth Gainwell had 1 of them. Just imagine if when they got inside the 5-yard line, if this coaching staff played fantasy football, knew the struggle of having Miles Sanders, seeing him get vultured by these touchdowns, and they were just giving them. I think you can be excited about Miles Sanders going forward. It's still kind of frustrating to see these other quarterbacks and running backs taking these rushing touchdowns. Now, our next lesson learned, it's going to be the same thing we say every week. Breece Hall is taking more and more and more of this backfield. If you have not traded for Breece Hall, I don't know what you're waiting for. Please go do it right now. We've been talking about this for God knows how long. 17 carries compared to Michael Carter at 9. I mean, at the same time, he had 6 targets compared to Michael Carter at 3. He had 46 snaps compared to Michael Carter at 31. Now, I don't necessarily think Zach Wilson is great. I know Zach Wilson's a dog. I don't know if he's a great NFL quarterback, but it simply may not matter. Breece Hall continues to expand his role, continues to look like a future workhorse running back, especially with his usage in the passing game. I am so excited about Breece Hall. Now, y'all know I drafted over 700 teams on Underdog Fantasy this offseason, and my most drafted running back, because people hated him, he was going in the 7th round. At the end of draft season, in some drafts, we were getting him in the 8th. Josh Jacobs, thank you. Thank you, thank you. for everything. Most drafted running back, Josh Jacobs. Most drafted wide receiver, Jalen Waddle. Oh, dear God. It's going to be a good year for your boy. Josh Jacobs, 28 carries, 2 rushing touchdowns, 144 rushing yards. He had 6 targets as well. He had more targets than Darren Waller in this offense. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't think Josh Jacobs was going to be great. I was worried about this Denver Broncos defense. However, looks like Josh Jacobs is able to overcome the piss-poor matchup here. Could not be more excited, and it looks like it doesn't matter what the matchup is. Jacobs may or may not be that must-start player every single week. Now, going over to our next lesson learned. Oh, dear God. It doesn't matter how talented you are in Atlanta. It doesn't matter how talented you are in Atlanta. If Marcus Mariota is only going to complete 7 passes, you are not going to be productive. Drake London comes through, 2 receptions, 17 receiving yards. Kyle Pitts, 1 reception, 25 receiving yards. They lead the team in targets. I mean, out of the 19 passing attempts that you have for Marcus Mariota, Drake London and Kyle Pitts combined for 11 of them. It simply doesn't matter. This was a Cleveland Browns defense as well that sustained a multitude of injuries. And I owe a massive apology to the person in the live stream this morning who asked me, Mason, we have no Amon-Ra St. Brown. We have no DeAndre Swift. We have no Jameson Williams. We have no DJ Chark. Should I go through play TJ Hockenson or Kyle Pitts? My response to them was, I understand TJ Hockenson is extremely exciting with this situation this week, but I think we got to go through and play Kyle Pitts. So we got that person a whopping 3.5 fantasy points, while TJ Hockenson went out there, 8 receptions, 179 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, 12 targets. Super happy to see it. And also another lesson learned. There's so much to look at with Detroit here. Is Craig Reynolds not really getting involved? 19 carries for Jamal Williams. Craig Reynolds had 2. Looks like Jared Goff behind what should be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I think we can safely say that the Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. It doesn't matter if his top 4 options in his offense are going to be out. Looks like Jared Goff is pretty good. Now, speaking of where we rank TJ Hockenson going forward, obviously, you are not expecting this every single week. It was the best situation possible for TJ Hockenson. You had nobody else in this offense. But at the same time, I mean, hell, it is hard not to get very excited about Hockenson. It's hard not to look at him, I mean, as a better tight end than Darren Waller at this point, right? Darren Waller had no Foster Moreau. Darren Waller had no Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller did nothing. So I think Hockenson is a top 5 tight end going forward rest of season. I prefer Kelsey, Andrews, maybe Kittle. I don't know. I think you definitely have Hockenson as a top 5 tight end. But that should be it. Thank you all so much for checking out the video. If you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, leave any takeaways or questions you have down there in the comment section. And last but not least, it is not too late. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100, and you will get this Cooper Cup special line for Monday night only with promo code FLOCK. Now, thank you again. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great night, and hope we get to see you with the video on Monday morning.